start with Mr. Massoud. Thanks so much for speaking with us at The Hindu. You're, of course, leading the NRF, as it is called, the Resistance Forces. The question being asked is 14 months after the fall of Kabul, where is the resistance force? How much does it control inside Afghanistan? And what kind of support are you receiving from the outside world?
Thank you. The NRF started last year, a result of dire confrontation of the Taliban and also their military takeover of the power in Kabul, and spreading their atrocity across the land and failing to recognize the importance of dialogue and talk and negotiation. As a result of that, the NRF came into existence to fight for Afghanistan's freedom, for Afghanistan's justice, and Afghanistan's multicultural state system and belief. Because the Taliban are after destroying all of the other identities. So in this regard, the NRF stood, and it was very small, and of course with no help from outside. However, we were not conditioned our struggle upon the receiving of this fundamental support of outside, because it is a moral obligation and duty that we have toward our homeland, in our motherland, to do whatever we can to bring justice and freedom to it once again. It started last year in Panjshir Valley, the last place which was still liberated, and now we spread to Badakhshan, to Takhar, to Samangan, to Nuristan, which was liberated a few months ago, a district within the Nuristan, and Parwan, Kapisa, and Bamyan. So we have spread to all of these regions in less than 1 year of actually, like officially, NRF working. And we, from, I can say, 600 something forces that the personnel that we had last year, now we are above 5,000 forces that we have. Are we controlling any center of the district or provinces? No, because it is not a strategy. I know our weaknesses and our strength. Our weakness and our strength, it is in that, just like the Taliban, that they never control a district or a province till last year. It was always them holding the outskirts and the other areas. Just like that, we understand that if we capture a district and province at this time, we are able to. However, holding on to it, because of the lack of resources that we have, it is not possible. So it was our strategic decision, and it was our part of our military strategy, that capturing a district and province this year was not a part of our plan.
You say you've grown in numbers, you've grown in the reach geographically in Afghanistan. And yet what we see also in Kabul is that the Taliban seems to have strengthened its hold. Today, at least 10 countries hold missions in Kabul. Many of them kept them open, dealing with the Taliban. We see Taliban leadership traveling into different capitals and being met over there. We see leaders traveling to Kabul to meet with them. And we'll speak about India in just a bit, but we also see that India has set up a mission in Kabul. Many say that there is actually no challenge to the Taliban, that anti-Taliban forces are too divided to pose a challenge. Do you think the Taliban is here to stay?
Absolutely not, because the Afghanistan history, it shows that capturing power is easy, but holding on to it, it is certainly not. And also, the Taliban's ideology is alien to Afghanistan. Yes, they're holding onto the power for now after 1 year. And the reason for that they are doing so is for various factors. One of it was that, unfortunately, the world, and including India, they put all of their baskets on the Republic at that time. They refused to actually invest in and understand and to have a plan B of supporting the Afghan people in different constituencies to withstand the brutality of the Taliban or their coming. The thing about the Taliban, and right now, sort of them dealing, which, yes, the leader used to be able to travel, but not anymore. And yes, there are missions in Kabul, but what are the results? This conference in here in the past 2 days, I believe it truly shows and it concludes that categorically all those hoped that the engagement with the Taliban would bring benefits to of the countries and also the people of Afghanistan, it failed. So therefore, we were waiting for this moment to happen. And so they understand that they need to broaden their reach, and they need to understand and address the problem of Afghanistan, that solely by engaging with Taliban it would not happen, because the Taliban unfortunately understood that until there is no pressure they would not compromise. So for these reasons, and another question is that you just mentioned that the opponents of the Taliban are divided. They are not. This has been always, an excuse for many countries to say that the opposition of the Taliban are divided. You heard about the voices of people in here in the past 2 days in the conference. That majority are speaking of their distrust of the Taliban, unhappiness of the situation, and their demand for change. This is the opposition of Taliban. And also, if it is about those traditional leaders, there is actually a structure, and there's a movement that those leaders, they're all in one structure. They're all working together, from Dostum to Atta to Muhaqqiq to Qanuni to many others. So the unity among the traditional leaders exists. The sort of the consensus among the political diaspora and academic diaspora and the youth, and also, as you mentioned, as you saw in women, as you saw today and yesterday, it exists. So therefore, this unity, also to the separation among these groups, it does not exist anymore. We are united. It is time for region in the world to unite when it comes to Afghanistan. For example, look at the UN resolution. America, France, UK, and these countries, they called upon the Taliban for change, and they condemned their behavior. Which countries they actually did not. So it shows that on international scale as well, it is something. And I believe that India, speaking particularly about India, needs to, especially if their goal and aim is to get beyond just the West and East sort of policies and games, apart from a historical bond between the people of Afghanistan and people of India. The government of Afghanistan is always the legitimate government of Afghanistan and governments of India, especially between the historical sort of the bond that we have, and my father and Professor Burhanuddin Rabbani, the last resistance that they did with India in establishing a free, just, and also safe Afghanistan, for India also to participate in this manner to really find a pragmatism, I believe, is not going. It will be tactically in short term maybe would not beneficial, but would show some result in terms of engagement. The Taliban being willing to do so, but strategically in long term, it would more consolidate the ideology, which is a terrorist ideology against all of us.
You're saying India's pragmatism is not going to reap long-term benefits. Obviously, you're comparing the time, as you said, with your father and Professor Rabbani, when India was, in fact, giving a platform to the resistance, helped out with a lot of the resistance's logistics, as well as had given home to 12,000 and more Afghan refugees who had come at the time. Compared to that, since 2021, the Indian government has clearly made a policy of offering aid to Afghans, but in Afghanistan, and not of giving visas to Afghans to travel to India. And as far as we know, have very little contact with the NRF. Have you tried to speak to India to change this?
Yeah, and I believe one thing is that the India is very much worried about the sort of the visa. This is as far as sort of I can say, it is not what I've been told, but it's my own assumption, is that they know every Thursday in Kabul for almost 1 year, the Taliban were giving citizenship and passports to foreign terrorists. So it will be very hard for India to distinguish and to know which passport holder of Afghanistan is actually a foreign terrorist coming for creating destruction and security threat or problem, or which one is actually genuinely supportive of India and what's theirs for safety, for study, medical reason, for whatever reason. So for this, this is just sort of a belief. However, in my personal opinion, one of the things is that the region, they were caught by surprise. After the withdrawal of America from Afghanistan, with the collapse, for example, I in detail explained to our Indian friends about almost day-to-day occurrence and of the collapse of Afghanistan. Almost day-to-day. What will happen, what will happen, what will happen, what will happen, which province first, which district first, and then so on and so forth. To make them realize that the situation in Afghanistan is very fragile and it would collapse sooner or later. But unfortunately, at that time, I believe that many countries, they were either they were blind to it, or they were not understanding it truly, or they were simply ignoring, or they were being too hopeful on the Republic, that they didn't see that the Republic could this quick fall apart. Unfortunately, on the other hand, the Taliban used the opportunity or a hope for called Doha Conference, a peace negotiation to happen. That many countries, they thought a preparation for resistance or a preparation for preventing the fall of the Afghan government is not necessary, because the peace will happen, especially that America is truly wanting it, and also the Taliban are shocked. But the Taliban have always abused the opportunity for peace to fuel their war machine. So I believe India and many other countries, after the collapse, they were in a wait-and-see policy. Because also there was some hopes that the Taliban are changed, or Taliban 2.0, that they could show some changes. But as you saw in the past 2 days of this conference as well, that many said, after 1.5 years of giving space and opportunity and money and to the Taliban, we saw that they have not changed, and they're pushing their dogmatic ideology on the people of Afghanistan.
All right, but in terms of actual, physical assets that you think India should help with, of course, we're in Tajikistan right now. India once used to maintain the Aini base. It had a hospital where your father was treated, in fact, after his injuries. Do you think that India should revive such investments in the region? How would you like India to progress from here?
It is the decision of India, but given the historical context and also the strategic threats, which is eminent from Afghanistan, and all the sorts of the intel reports that we receive, the sorts of the security, it got worse in the Kashmir area. It is getting worse in Pakistan and also Afghanistan. Of course, we all saw that the false promise of Taliban of a safety and security was completely false, and we all know that a lot of international terrorist groups are finding Afghanistan as a safe haven, as a sort of training camps. So it is it is a necessary sort of strategic benefit for the India and the other countries to be preparing for Plan B as well. Let's given that the Taliban do not deliver on the demand of the world. It's been 1 year and a half. We saw that there is not only any good changes, but actually more and more extremism are showing its face in Afghanistan, stripping women from every right day by day, and then all those atrocity which is happening across Afghanistan. And all of it is happening, the displacement of people and so on and so forth. So it just shows the Taliban are not changing, and this threat truly exists. And international terrorists are actually coming to Afghanistan as I'm speaking to you. So all of it is showing that India, because the India that I know, besides those pragmatism, India always carries a torch of value. When you start seeing from the Bollywood movies to let's say the Indian literature to the speaks of Gandhi and speaks of Nehru and many others. It always India was a value. It was an ideology. of democracy, peace, freedom, justice, pluralism. India was a symbol of that, the biggest democracy in the world. So just that in a country which has such a historical ties with India, and now to see that India is falling into a pragmatism, it's stupidity. India is not like that. The India that we know and love, it is the India which goes beyond all of this. It is the India that have that torch of the value, and it is a symbol of resistance for these values to many countries, including Afghanistan. So therefore, I believe, beside that security measures and the security, let's say, needs and interests that India truly has, and paying a close attention to the situation in Afghanistan, also those historical value context also exist for India to play a big role in helping the people of Afghanistan reaching to the point to finally they also be able to live a dignified life and also to have a government that truly represents them.
You're saying you're disappointed, but you still have expectations. Just one last question I do want to ask. As your father's son, you had many options ahead of you. You could have chosen not to join the resistance and to look at just political. There are many options for you over there. Why did you choose this path?
Why did Gandhi choose to fight with his method? He could live in London. Why did he leave? Why Nehru chose that? Why Ahmad Massoud? He could do the same thing. He is my role model. Gandhi is my role model. And Prophet Muhammad, my prophet, is my role model. He was the most respected man in the whole Jazirat al-Arab and Medina and Mecca. Why he chose to tell people what you're doing is wrong, and this brutality in killing the young girls and burying them, it is wrong, you need to change this. Why he was being very respected in that society. Sometimes the right path, it's the hardest path. I grew up in London, and I could live in London. I could have a comfortable life in London. I could work in a university. I could be an assistant or something. And I could follow my sort of personal dream of astronomy and be an astronomer or like astrologist. Why? Because when I look at the eyes of the girls and boys of Afghanistan, which they're suffering right now, they deserve much better than this. Right? Mm-hmm. And when I say it's not their fault, we are being always, unfortunately, cursed with this geography, which is being positioned in a place that one time it was the rivalry between Russia and the Britain Empire. Another time it was between the Russia and America, and now it is between China and America. It is not our fault always that these wars has been forced upon us. But we deserve a dignified life, and we deserve, our people deserve a dignified
and if you give the people this alternative to the Taliban, which at moment doesn't look like it has yet come together, would you lead it?
No. I would. I just want to see my country and my people in that hope and happiness in their eyes, and my job is done. And we have amazing, talented young girls and boys who can lead this country into the future, and then I would be honored to support them and to help them in any way possible. But the thing is that although that myself I'm young, but it is not generational, or it's not an ancestral duty of Massoud family to always be in politics or to do something. I just want to see my country free, and we have talented young men and women who can lead this country to the future. It is up to the decision of people of Afghanistan. This is why I love democracy in election, because they must decide.